This is Mike Byrnes with another episode of Business Bests. Hopefully this information is helping your business succeed and be more successful. Hopefully it's helping you as an individual too, because we are talking about LinkedIn. I forgot to say in the previous recording that LinkedIn is yours. There are some companies that try to institute the brand, enforce compliance rules and all that kind of stuff. I do think that is a little bit of an issue. Obviously, you don't want to get in compliance trouble, but the LinkedIn profile is yours. If you leave that company, you get to own that and manage that. So make sure you can push back to a certain extent. Obviously, you don't want to get fired because you don't update your LinkedIn profile, but know that that is the case. This next segment I want to do is about networking. I don't want you to think about networking 100% like you would, like if you went to a function at a cocktail party and they had the little networking piece and you try to meet as many people as you can and passing out the business cards. This is a little bit more advanced, and I'll tell you why. So I want you to think about is creating new friendships, but also strengthening existing relationships. And you can do so much more than if you had to go meet them in person at networking events, because you just have more access to them online. One really cool feature that is now gone. I broke the news to the financial services world industry in 2011. They had this thing called in-maps. And what that allowed you to do was you connected your LinkedIn profile and it would display all your contacts. So if you have 1,000 contacts, what it would do is it actually group them. Kind of like it would color code them and it would show how all these connections are interwoven and they connect with each other. So if you imagine like a galaxy of all these stars, one category might be kind of reddish and one was blue, one was green, one was purple, green. And what it would do is it would highlight people within a certain industry or some grouping. So example, I'll just pick maroon because I went to Boston College. If there was a maroon color in that kind of ecosystem, what it would do is it would kind of just group all those people that you knew from business school or whatever your themes are of your contacts and those sub-segments and categories. The real cool thing about this feature was you could highlight one of the little, it looked like a star, right? Highlight one of the little dots and it would show you that person's name. And it was, to me, it was really powerful to have you visualize your network, but it could also help you kind of strategize. I need to do a better job in this segment, and you could hover over these little dots, and I thought it was a powerful tool. Obviously, it probably didn't have enough usage, and LinkedIn didn't have the programmers dedicated and the resources dedicated to keep it going. So as far as I know, it's gone, but it was a cool feature. I thought I'd put that out there. But as you start to think about your network, you do have to kind of come up with a strategy, what you want to do. There are two schools of thought, and I would say at the end of this, I'm probably going to have you compromise. But what I recommend, one school of thought is that you consider having just people you know in your network. And that has a lot of benefits, right? So if somebody, Jim Smith, says, hey, can you introduce me to Nancy? I see she works at such and such company, and I really would like to meet her to network. It helps if you know that person in your network, right? Because if you have to go back to that person and say, I really don't know who she is, that is not a good impression, right? But I also say, like, all these people in your network you want to know and trust. If you start to think about all the people that you're pushing your content out, we'll talk about content in a bit, it can be a benefit to have more contacts. So the other school of thought is that you try to connect with as many people as you can and that you have then more resources to reach out to people. Second connections you can message with, and so with the free version you can message with them, kind of unlimited amount of messaging basically. So you're going to want to have as many contacts as you want so you can message these people all the time. I do see a lot of people that just blanket LinkedIn with all of these connection requests. They really don't message these people the right way, and it can be kind of a creepy experience. If you get that invite from somebody you don't know, it could just be pending and sit there forever, or enough people can click ignore. That's really the choice. You can connect or ignore. I think if LinkedIn sees that you are ignored by such a high number of people that then it can restrict you. In the old days, it would just shut you down. And actually, I can remember having a client for reasons that they said were not that bad, but they got boxed out of LinkedIn. And it was something they really used. So obviously, they were going a little too far. They got past the gray area into too aggressively using LinkedIn. And the self-service or the help online approach, it was painful. Like they weren't getting the response they needed. They needed to be on LinkedIn quicker and all that. So they actually reached out to me as their consultant, and I knew an executive at LinkedIn a whole bunch at the time, and I got the person to approve that person to be less restricted, and that client kind of learned their lesson. I think that's the extreme that you get seen as a spammer. Probably the step that happens before that is that if you get ignored too much, they might start to require that you have to have the person's email. So they're basically requiring that you know the person or have enough information about them to send a connection request. Don't go too far that you kind of come up and you get flagged and these triggers then try to restrict you. It's just not a good place to be. So I like to see both sides of the argument. The compromise that I have for you is to think about how could you maybe connect with strangers to your benefit. If you see all these types of invites coming in, they're spammers, right? They're trying to cold call you for something. You might just ignore them. If you want them to be seen as spammers, actually click ignore. So it's actually whether you just leave them there or whether you actually take an action. That is something that you could do. But maybe it's interesting that you see something pop up that yeah, that's my target market, right? Or that's a potential strategic alliance, and so it's worth connecting with them. That's where I would potentially connect with them. If you do connect with them, then you can message them for free. So you say, hey, such and such, thank you very much for the LinkedIn invite. I would really love to get to know you better. Can you meet with me next week or next month? Or just give them a bit of a window that they can respond. If you don't hear back from them, that is probably a relationship that you don't need to have, right? So you can go back and unconnect with them. It's a bit of a manual process to be doing this all the time, but something to think about. But if somebody is checking out your profile and sends you an invite and they can connect with you in a business way that they're going to make you more successful, it's great to have that connection. So if you send that message and then it leads to a meeting and then something happens good out of it, that's exactly what we want. So that's where you might want to think about one approach to connecting with strangers. The other one is you start to prospect, and maybe it's outside of the LinkedIn environment, but you find out like, here's the event planner, I'm a speaker, this event planner works for this company and I should be speaking at their big conference. So I kind of reverse engineer maybe from their website, I see who the person is that makes the decisions on speakers, I find who that person is, and then I send them a LinkedIn invite. For the free version, you can customize the message a certain amount of times, not very many, or you can just send them the connection request as is. That's not going to be as successful. So again, if you're trying to connect with a whole bunch of people with the free version, you're going to find that you're not going to be as successful with them actually connecting with you if you don't really think about how you're utilizing that message capability or message limitation. One other thing you could do on someone that's sending in a request is verify who they are. So you can go out to the outside world, put their name in and see what comes up. Or you can actually see if they have a second connection. So that's somebody that hopefully you would both know. And you can see that Bob is a friend of yours, you went to school with them, and he's connected with this stranger that's trying to get into your LinkedIn connections. That's where you might want to think about reaching out to that person and say, hey, do you know such and such? Should I connect with them? All right, why are you putting so many precautions on these strangers trying to connect with you? Would you let a stranger in your house when you're not there? The answer is no, right? Like you probably are going to be protective. So the other question is, do you cherish your connections, right? If you let them in, you're now going to be seen as somebody that knows that person, that you're familiar, so they can go see all your connections and they could actually start to spam them. Back in the old days, I can remember hearing a story of a competitor getting a financial advisor allowed a competitor, another financial advisor into their connections, and that person's whole goal was to try to recognize who that financial advisor had as clients, who those connections were, and he was trying to message them all and try to connect with them and then try to get them as his own prospects. Pretty shady, right? That stuff happens, so just be careful. Who are these people that you're going to trust to know your network and see who your connections are? Again, one of those other things that you want to potentially compromise on with your strategy of how to build up your network is going and profiling the right people. LinkedIn will allow you to do some really cool things with search that will allow you to go find the right types of prospects, the right types of strategic alliances, whoever it might be. Before we get into that, I would love you to think about kind of the old ways of how you would get introduced. So you have a client that you connected with on LinkedIn, you can actually go see everyone that they know. And that's a strategy that we could talk about a little bit more in client referrals and that type of segment. But the reality is when you know everyone that your client knows, and that's a happy client, hopefully they wouldn't mind making introductions. So you can spend, if they have 1,000 connections, you can spend a half an hour just going through page by page by page. It might give you, 10 results on a page, and you just start to come up with a list of 3 or 4 people that you want to get introduced to. This is where you might want to go back to the old school approach and have them meet with you in their regular or quarterly meeting or whatever it might be, and when they're sitting across from you, say, hey, I see Tim McNamara, and he would be a fantastic person for me to know from what I can see. Do you think I should get introduced to him? And if that person says yes, and they're willing to do it, you just took the referral approach and took it up a notch because you actually provided them a name. And actually, rather than just have them kind of think about all their connections and no names appear into their brain, you've actually pinpointed one person or maybe 3 people. That can work really well with an old college roommate or somebody that is your #1 biggest fan, but I would caution you doing that with every client because it's a very salesy approach and pretty aggressive. But there are certain people probably within your LinkedIn connections that could be those power influencers or power introducers, however you want to call it, that it might be worth a half an hour of your time before you meet with them in person. Or you don't even have to meet with them in person, because if you're friendly with them, you could send them a text like, "Hey, do you know that guy Jim McNamara?" Via text, and you learn from LinkedIn, and you can see what comes back. Give me a call. I'd love to learn more about them. And as you tell that your friend or your industry contact tells you more about them, that's where you can lead to an introduction. So an old school way of connecting with strangers. LinkedIn will allow for people to get connected. And so if it is a referral or a potential lead, you can get connected via LinkedIn, but then you don't know if they're going to accept that invite, or it's just not going to work with every age group or every kind of sophistication of LinkedIn. So that's where you might want to pull that back and get the introduction to happen. Yes, maybe on LinkedIn, but also try to have it happen in the real world. I say like outside of the online environment. So whether it's in person, even email, it is online, but might be more effective with certain target markets. But in person is probably the best way, or a Zoom introduction or whatever it might be. So last thing with connecting with strangers, if you're going to do it, this is the consultant in me talking about who do you really want to build your network with? Who's going to be the base? So it's your clients. Prospects, that's a whole nother category. And that's, let's just say you have a target market that's really refined. Small business owners in my 20-mile region and within my office. You can do a report, maybe using LinkedIn or maybe outside that environment, come up with all the companies, and then you can kind of search and figure out who those people would be, and then you can kind of come up with that. So you can do clients, prospects, strategic alliances. Did a whole bunch of videos on how to get introduced through strategic alliances. You should build that out and make sure LinkedIn allows you to do that. Again, very cool, like I used in the client referrals kind of discussion just 1 minute ago, is once you're connected with your strategic alliance, you kind of get a sense of who they're connected with, right? And most likely their clients are connected with them. So you start to get a sense of who you could potentially get introduced through a strategic alliance. And if it's going to be a good strategic alliance, you're going to want to do the same. So now they can kind of see who you're connected with, and that can go back and forth, and it can be a really powerful partnership, whether it's official or unofficial. But that's better than that center of influence strategy. I think that strategic alliance, you're trading kind of favors, or you're doing activities and communications and different things that are helping each other's businesses, that's really powerful. So make sure LinkedIn is a component of that strategy. The press is maybe another category that you want to connect with. When you connect with the press, if you kind of come at it as a stranger, you might want to word it so that you can be a resource to them, or you're putting some benefit into it, because the press maybe is a little bit more popular than your average person, so they might be getting more invites to connect. And if they're getting a lot and you don't get accepted right away, you're just going to fall down the list and they might not ever see it, and then you're pending forever, right? You're never going to get approved. But the press might be a category that you think about. Really do some brainstorming. If you have a consultant like me, or if you have coworkers, or maybe even use an AI, whatever it might be, come up with a list of these different sub-segments that are going to improve your business, and then use LinkedIn to help deliver on that. Almost every time I have a connection that comes in, whether I know them or don't know them, or whether I don't know them or know them, and I send it out, I want to send a thank you. So in LinkedIn, once they've you're now a first connection and it's free, take the time to say, hey, such, thank you so much for the LinkedIn invite, or connecting with my LinkedIn invite. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we're connected. Put your name and your phone number in there, or whatever it might be. Email can go in there too. That allows you to then have them easily contact you. You might want to be more aggressive and have a call to action in there and say, hey, thank you very much, blah, 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 blah. Let's try to set up a time this week or next week. And I talked a little bit about that example. The nice thing about a message once you're first connected is you can now put in a URL where you couldn't do that before. So you might want to say, hey, if you're interested in learning more about our services, here's a link to that. Or here's a video of me and telling a little bit about what I do. So the LinkedIn connection is, again, text related, but now you can put in something that could allow them to see you and get to know you, and pushing maybe what is website content down into the lead funnel into LinkedIn, and actually populating it out where it needs to be if they're not coming into that environment where you have that type of video. So make sure you're using that messaging appropriately to really have a strong connection. That's a nice tie-in to engagement and relationships, kind of that overall category. If you are silent on LinkedIn and do not use it at all to message people, you're missing out on an opportunity to bring your connections and your network to be closer. If I connected with somebody 10 years ago and I've never messaged them and they never see me, whatever, it's not a dead connection, but it's really not that beneficial. But if I use the ability to message on things that they post, or I have certain triggers that remind me to message to them, that's going to be very beneficial. A very nice thing that LinkedIn does for you, because they want us, LinkedIn's going to make money off advertising, right? And so if people aren't using it daily and coming back and returning and being active in LinkedIn, they're not going to make as much money. So they actually are helping us in certain ways to keep those connections really strong. The most obvious one is birthdays. So if you have your birthday in there, in your profile and your information, LinkedIn will then notify your connections, your first connections, that's your birthday. Again, another reason not to have strangers in your connections, because they're going to get that could be dangerous information to share with strangers. But it doesn't hurt to let your connections really know your birthday. Hopefully you trust them, right? And how cool is it when you get all bombarded with all those birthday messages? Some people don't care, but I like it. People took a little bit of their time to send a nice message. Same thing, right? It creates that warm, fuzzy feeling. Send that message and let it refresh that relationship. Even if let's say you didn't go into LinkedIn every day of the week and you missed somebody's birthday, so it'll show you like the most recent birthdays. Send a belated message, and then on top of that, say something like, how was your birthday? Did you have a good celebration? Put a question in there so that they are then teased to reply. and that can create some dialogue that goes back and forth. So a conversation that had gone dead or gone cold, or someone they're just not interacting with anymore, the birthday could be that trigger to keep the connection going. You can also be notified. There's a notification section of all kinds of updates. Jobs is a big one. If somebody switches jobs, you're going to get an opportunity to message. So go in and take the opportunity to publicly post and say, hey, wonderful that you got that new job. That's fantastic. You'll do great at it, whatever the type of message they want to put in there. Drop that in, and then also like it. If they're a popular person, they're going to get 100 responses, right? So you're going to be just one of 100. They'll read them, but it's not going to stand out a lot. Put a trigger in your CRM to contact that person a week later and send them a message. So that one was kind of the public way of doing it. The other way is, hey, can't believe you got that new job. That's fantastic. Sounds like a perfect fit for you. I can't wait to learn more about it. You have an opportunity to talk next week. That's where you might want to give them a little bit more of a window to meet with you, because you could put in there like, I understand you'll probably be drinking from the fire hose, but I can't wait to learn about what you're doing. How about we meet next month? And then put the trigger in your CRM to follow up with them if they don't respond, because they are going to be overwhelmed when they start a new job. It's just the nature of the beast. The nice thing about posting in the public setting is that they put up that they have something that they want to kind of brag about, right? Like they want to have some exposure go out. All their connections can see that post. So if you comment on it, now their connections can see your comment, even if you're not connected with that person. So if you write something that's really powerful there, it's going to give you some awareness. Like, it's going to provide awareness to those people of who you are. And then the second piece of that is, if you're already connected with them, it's more visibility. So again, you're top of mind. I don't think everybody reads all the comments of that on some notification, but there are definitely people that will do it. At least when you go in, you're going to see a handful of them, right? You maybe will see at least the top 3. So you might have those people be top of mind for you, and the same thing's going to happen when you put that comment in. So there are all kinds of benefits of comment marketing. We'll talk about that maybe in a whole nother section, but that is ways to have people get to be familiar with you, or again, be more visible to the people that already know who you are. You have the notification section in LinkedIn, but another way to do it right now is under My Network. You go there, and then if you go down, there's a tab a little bit farther down that says Catch Up. So that's where you can go see all those birthdays that you might have missed. It also could be those jobs changes. That's a wonderful time. There's some kind of transition in somebody's life, and that might even be your prospect too, right? Like the person that money in motion type of prospect. That's a great trigger to know. But what else are they sharing? How are they out there pushing content? How can you make a connection based on what they're sharing? Right? There's some knowledge there that you're now seeing. Hey, this is important for them to share to the outside world, and it gives you more. A better sense of how you follow up with that person or how you interact with that person. So engagement, build those relationships up, and use the public way of doing it within their connection base that the people are going to see it, but also use the messaging ability where it's just one-on-one. The pros and cons of the messaging for LinkedIn. If you have too many emails in your inbox, LinkedIn can be a refreshing way to just catch up with people you're connected with. If you have an inbox where you're getting bombarded by strangers, if I send an email to you, it might be on the list somewhere in the 400 emails you get for the day, and it might not be seen. Well, the frequency of sending messages in LinkedIn is way lower, right? So maybe the person gets one message, or maybe they get 10 messages a day, whatever it might be. Hopefully it's less than that, but you send in the LinkedIn message. So it's a way better chance of being seen. That's the pro. The negative or the con might be that they don't actively check their LinkedIn in-mail, their inbox. If you start to think about what's the best way to get a hold of them, there's 2 ways to do it, that traditional email or messages. In some cases, people just are bad. They create a LinkedIn profile and they never go back. And there are other power users That might be a way to get in there. And there are different types of spam filters, right? So you might actually be sending something and the deliverability rate is really low going through traditional email, but LinkedIn might not have that same type of spam filter, and so your message might be more likely to get through. Something to think about if your messages, for some reason, are going into spam. Last part on messaging is that these in-mails that you have to pay for, that's basically a message that's kind of a cold call message. You're not connected with them. They're a second connection or more. You can't send a whole bunch of those without paying for the higher end service. And every level that you pay, you get more in-mails that you can send each month. I believe it's currently 3 that you get each month. Actually put a trigger in the calendar and have it repeat that you maximize those 3 messages. So this is not where you go connect with a stranger. This is maybe a more powerful way of trying to get introduced to a stranger is you find out who those people are and you send them a message. You know, if you send them that LinkedIn invite and they don't connect, it's pending forever, right? But the message that you send could be in their inbox and they could see it years from now, right? If they're catching up, it could still be there. So that could be a more powerful tool. The vast majority of people that use LinkedIn, for the free version of it, aren't maximizing those little free messages. And that's something that I would try to figure out, who are those people that would be influential to help you individually or as a business that you should just be pinging and sending messages to. I'd encourage you to come up with a campaign. So we're going to talk about content marketing and how to use LinkedIn in a future session. But come up with a campaign of how to message people within your client base. Start there. How do you use your regular email or other forms of communication versus LinkedIn? This is where you might want to have some kind of campaign that you're going to reach out to people to stay connected and utilize LinkedIn to see if it's more effective as a way to getting to that audience. So we'll talk about advanced search in a minute. I work with financial advisors a lot in my business. So I can go search and see all the people that use the word financial advisor in their title. And that will print out 100 plus names, of which then I actually have a subsegment list. That the nice thing about lists in LinkedIn is that they update their information on their own. So as long as their profile isn't out of date, they're actually putting in the right descriptions from their words of what they think they do or what they are all about. And so you do that search, you come up with those names. Now come up with a campaign for whatever that search is. So financial advisors, for me, it might be, hey, I don't know if you just saw my latest video on AI and how it's going to revolutionize what financial advisors do and how they're going to be more profitable. Just want to let you know, here's a link to the video. If you ever want a free consultation on this, oh, by the way, I would love to do that for you. And here's my contact information. If you use something like Calendly or something like that, plug it in there. And it's very prospecting, right? So there are prospects probably within your own network within LinkedIn. Come up with a campaign of how to reach out to them. Work on the wording. So again, do a first draft, drop it in AI, or have a professional marketing person review it. What's the point of what you're trying to do? Maybe do some A/B testing if the list is large enough in your network. Try one approach, maybe do 50 names. Try another approach, another 50 names, another approach, another 50 names. And it's a little bit of a manual process. You're going to go into LinkedIn, do that list, click on their name, then next to their picture, you're going to hit message, drop in the message, customize it just enough. So you copy and paste it in, put their name in there, maybe a sentence about, it's been so long since I talked to you, I think it was blah, 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 or how was your summer vacation? I hope that you went to Martha's Vineyard again, or whatever it might be. Customize it just enough, hit send, go back to your list, go into the next contact, and just bang that out. Every once in a while I'll do something like that, and I will do it while I'm watching a baseball game or a football game where I'm not really excited about what's going on the TV, and I just could use my time more productively. So I kind of want to watch what's going on, but I also want to do something for my business. So that maybe is kind of blurring into that personal time. But maybe it's going to be so effective that it should be something that you could chunk. to come up with a LinkedIn campaign every quarter, come up with different sub-segments within your base, and then come up with messaging. Again, this is Mike Byrnes. I'm here to help you. Hopefully this has been some insightful advice about LinkedIn. We'll continue the conversation next time. But for now, again, it's another episode of Business Bests. Thanks for tuning in.